win the war on terror, we must be able to detain, question, and when appropriate, prosecute terrorists captured here in America and on the battlefields around the world. We have in place a rigorous process to ensure those held at Guantanamo Bay belong at Guantanamo.
If they decide it's right, then you stay there, and you stay there forever.
It's a legal limbo of incarceration from which there's no way out.
Why American people, they treat these people like that?
You know, they're literally losing their minds.
And I don't think there's anything we as people can do about it.
In November 2001, bounty hunters snatched Omar Deghayes from his home in Pakistan and handed him over to the US authorities at the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. Part of a process that President Musharraf later admitted earned Pakistan millions of dollars. He was then transferred to Guantanamo Bay, where he's been kept without trial ever since. Born in Libya, he was just 10 years old when his father, a prominent anti-Gaddafi lawyer, was assassinated by the authorities in Tripoli. His family sought refuge in England in 1986, where Omar studied law. On leaving college, he went travelling in the East and looked for the opportunity to support both himself and impoverished farmers in Afghanistan by importing dried fruit. It was here that he met and married his Afghani wife, who later gave birth to their son, Suleiman. Within months of his birth, the US forces invaded and Omar decided to move his family to the relative safety of neighbouring Pakistan. Back in England, Omar's mother was beginning to worry.
After 2 months, I didn't hear from my son Omar anything, any phone, no call me, nothing. I'm worried about him, and he didn't contact me. Then I received a small card, and it's written, "Mom, I'm with American people in the prison in Guantanamo." And that first time I heard about this.
At first, his family reacted cautiously.
I personally did nothing. I feared for myself, because we all Muslims were frightened after 9/11. The mood was that, you know, every Muslim is guilty until proven innocent, and at the same time, we didn't know what to do and where to start or how to go about it. I mean, it's a first-time experience in a Western democracy in this country where I felt, you know, we are secure. And there was the law to take care of us, and all of a sudden we're in a situation like we had with my father in Libya, you know, maybe worse.
Whilst his family were keeping quiet through fear of an anti-Muslim backlash, human rights lawyer Clive Stafford Smith was attempting to gain access to the detainees.
We brought the original lawsuit on behalf of all the prisoners back in February 2002. And we finally won 2.5 years later in the US Supreme Court, which is what got lawyers into Guantanamo. I first met Omar in January 2005. I think I was the first human being from outside Guantanamo, apart from intelligence interrogators, who he'd seen for 3 years at least.
As word finally spread, local campaigner Jackie Chase heard about Omar and decided to set up the Save Omar campaign in March 2005.
I got involved in the campaign because, just like any other member of our community, and remember I'd been working for several years with the Racial Harassment Forum by that stage, I felt he was entitled to be treated by the same rules as the rest of us, and he's certainly entitled to due process, and he clearly wasn't getting that.
The first step was to establish what evidence had led to his capture.
One of the problems with any case in Guantanamo is there's no formal charges, but there are at least allegations made against Omar. And the main part of that was that he was a rebel in Chechnya, which came as quite a surprise to Omar, who would tell me, you know, I've never been to Chechnya, I don't know what they're talking about. And we couldn't get our hands on the supposed evidence for it. And in the end, actually, it was the BBC that got a copy of this supposed videotape that proves categorically that Omar is a Chechen rebel. So I went down to watch it with Omar's brother Taher, and, you know, to be honest, we're a bit nervous. You know, did Omar tell the truth when he said it couldn't possibly be him? But then up comes this video, and it says underneath it, you know, Mr. Deghayes, and there's a picture of this guy with a big beard and everything. But Taher and I both cracked up laughing simultaneously because it looks like a young Fidel Castro, but it doesn't look anything like Omar. And so for 3 years, the United States had held Omar based on this videotape that they hadn't bothered to show to anyone that just isn't him.
This apparent lack of evidence has not spared him from some of the harsher realities of life in Guantanamo. Moazzam Beg, a former detainee released after an appeal by the British government, was shown pictures of Omar as part of intelligence gathering.
The photographs of him didn't look good at all. His face was gaunt, battered, bruised. He clearly had a very rough time. And I was shown his photograph, I think, on 2 or 3 occasions. And again, I told him that I'd never seen or knew who he was. But whoever he was had evidently been beaten up pretty badly.
I've spent 20 years visiting prisoners on death row in the United States, and there's nothing like Guantanamo. And part of that's the physical conditions, part of it is the treatment, the abuse of the prisoners, and part of it is the simple fact that these prisoners have no hope.
George Bush! George Bush! George Bush!
By now, Omar's brother Abu Bakr had found his voice and was attending demonstrations around the country. In the meantime, Jackie Chase was picking up the phone.
If you try to phone Guantanamo Bay, you'll be told that you can't speak to anybody at Guantanamo. You can only speak to the authorities at the Pentagon. If you try to phone the Pentagon, you'll probably get fobbed off between 11 and 13 different officials per phone call. That's if the phone doesn't happen to just get disconnected, or be engaged to the person you particularly meant to speak to, or he's not available, or he's on holiday, or something like that. When you do manage to pin somebody down, they'll tell you that they're sorry that they're unable to discuss a particular person's case. And I find that so scary, and I feel so sorry for his family having to deal with that, because no one can even tell them whether he's well, whether he's eaten today, whether he slept last night.
I'm so worried and wondering why American people, they treat these people like that. If they guilty, or they must bring them to the court and to see who terrorism or not, and release them and close down this Guantanamo.
After an initial meeting at the US Embassy, the Save Omar campaign were invited to a return meeting with Richard Bell, the first secretary to the American ambassador in London, where they were expecting to hear news about Omar.
They invite us, saying they have a response from Washington. They want to meet Omar's family. And yet, as soon as we come here and we meet with them, they say they can't speak about a specific case. And basically, they have no response whatsoever. All they're trying to do, I think, is a PR meeting, trying to convince us as a family and as people who are dedicated for justice, campaigning for the release of Omar, that what the United States of America is doing is the right thing and the just thing and is justifiable.
We asked them what we could do to appeal to the authorities, how we could actually get through on behalf of these men, and there just seems to be no process. There's not just a lack of due process. I don't know what we can do. I'm just so frustrated. I don't know where to go next. I don't know. I can't use the law. We can't use a representation in a democratic system. You know, this meeting came about because we went to our local council and we went to our MP. Our MP has been to the Foreign Office. Now we've gone to the American Embassy, to the ambassador. Where else can we go?
Although the rest of his family have become citizens of the UK, Omar's application had not been approved before his capture, and hence he does not currently qualify for representation by the UK government. This leaves him in the hands of Libya, whose agents have already visited him in Guantanamo.
These 4 Libyan agents immediately start telling Omar that he's an enemy of the state. One of them says, "It is as clear as the sun rises each day that you, Omar Deghayes, are an enemy of the state. And while I can't do anything to you here in Guantanamo, when you come back to Libya, I personally am going to kill you." Now, you know, this is the Libyans coming to supposedly give him consular assistance, and they're going to kill him. And if Omar goes back to Libya, I have very little doubt that that's what will happen to him.